Greetings, fellow dupes. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a new series covering Oxygen Not Included, named Dino Armageddon. If you would like to skip the game's overview or the detail about this series, please use YouTube chapters. Oxygen Not Included is a space colony simulation game with a lot of engineering elements. Deep inside an alien space rock, your industrious crew will need to master science, overcome strange new life forms, and harness incredible space tech to survive, and possibly to thrive. The Prehistoric Pack DLC adds a dinosaur asteroid and multiple biomes to accompany it, as well as a new scenario condition where a massive asteroid threatens to destroy your home. So I'll be playing with only the Prehistoric Planet Pack DLC, not the other ones, and only using one mod, which allows me to display Fahrenheit and Celsius together. I'm going to hit continue. The world that I've already pre-generated is survival mode. And it has world traits of geoactive and mixed boulders with no story traits. There's no sub-stories hiding out anywhere. I will not be printing extra dupes. So the long and short of it is, the Dino scenario, the Planet Pack scenario, is that there's a planet killer, or in this case, asteroid killer, coming to kill everyone. And I think it would be morally reprehensible to print extra dupes to subject them to potential death. So this challenge is a 3-dupe challenge, in other words. I'm not going to be using blueprints or canned solutions. Everything is going to be like ad hoc and made up by me. And also, like, please no spoilers of backseating. So before we start, this is one of the new starting biomes. For all of the new plants and animals, I'll be talking about them specifically as they become relevant to the gameplay. So I'm not going to like stop and raffle off encyclopedic knowledge at you. The starting dupes. We've got Macho, or I should just say the dupes. We've got Macho. So Macho is a building, suit-wearing, digging personal interest who's a night owl, so he's going to have a slightly different schedule, and I'll be setting that up in a minute, as well as an ugly crier and a sparkle streaker. And his negative is squeamish, so he doesn't do doctoring. Shield here is a research operating supplying, also a sparkle streaker. He's a kinship menace, so he cannot cook, but he gets extra morale from cooking. Uncultured, so he doesn't expect much decor, and destructive, so will not repair buildings when high stress. Sushi is suit wearing, farming, and tidying. He is also destructive, building impaired, so he's not very good at building. He's green-thumbed and super productive when he's overjoyed. So those are our starting dupes. The big difference of the Planet Pack for the starting location is, you might have noticed there's no coal, but instead peat. There's no copper, instead it's nickel. Those are probably the main changes, and then like the average rock is shale, not like sandstone or something similar. Alright. One of the first things I want to do right at the start here is to get to this research portal. So there's a few things that you want to do right at the start, which is, as I just said, get to the research portal, but we're also going to want like an outhouse and cots to sleep on. So that is what I'm going to be working on immediately. As far as the research portal goes, one of the other things I want to do really early on is to plan for a potential nature reserve, which is 4 wild plants. So we only have 3 wild plants in there, I think. There, if we go to the farming overlay, 3 wild plants there. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. I could incorporate those, but they're kind of spaced apart. There's 3 in close proximity here. So what I might end up doing is like using these 3 here and then trying to incorporate 1 more plant from somewhere else or something like that. Or these 3 and that one. But that one's kind of in the way for what I intend for that area to be. So I'll think about that. Basically, I don't want to be too destructive to the plant plants around here, because if I'm destructed to the plants around here, it's going to be really challenging for me to incorporate them into, like a nature reserve. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up some priorities. So, Macho, we've got a tidier, research, operate, farm, building, digging, supplying and storing, something like that, roughly speaking. And I'll adjust accordingly as time goes on. And we're going to want to mine up some materials and then plan on an outhouse and a cot. So, get to the research portal, build a barracks, and latrine, which I'm just going to shorten as lat. So the barracks here needs to have 1 or more beds and be smaller than 64 tiles but greater than 12, and it will give morale. And then the latrine needs a toilet and a wash station. So the other thing we're going to need, in addition to building a toilet, is getting a source of water. So there seems to be water up there and water down here, and I can do either way. So I'm going to probably build the latrine somewhere downwards, and then the research room up here, where the research portal is. Research and latrines are the things that need the most water source. For the most part. Internet Dragons and Neron and Louie, thank you for the resubs. And the much delayed hydration. So in terms of like large scale planning, if this is going to be my... Oh, you know what? So a research station is something I'm going to want to put there. I'm only going to really be able to plan it out once I have a little bit of metals. So let's get a little bit of nickel metal first so I can plan it. But I was planning on having my research room be here near the research portal, because this research portal acts as a light source. So it's kind of like a free light bulb that I can use, which is awfully convenient, I would say. So if I wanted a bathroom, maybe what I'll do is run a ladder down here and try to set up a bathroom somewhere near this water source. So like a bathroom over yonder. It's going to be a little weird. Normally I would use like this soil to try to set it up quickly. So in this case, what I might end up doing is like building one outhouse and then moving it. Because if I place the outhouse where I want it, we might have accidents, and I would like to avoid accidents. Is the polling working? Probably. Although I didn't really intend to do a lot of polling this run in general. But it's working. It just needs to be moved. There it is. Polling seems to be fine. So the game is warning me that I don't have an outhouse built. I know. And I don't have an oxygen generator built. That I know as well. Now, really early on, it'd be nice to get a barracks up, but it doesn't really matter if they sleep on the floor, as long as it's an oxygenated place, and there's a lot of oxalate outgassing, so there's plenty of oxygen being included, at least for now. Ooh, there is a lot of plants here. That's a lot of water. There's a few pockets of carbon dioxide, but mostly it's oxygen. Alright, if we worry about an outhouse, perhaps what I'll do is I'll just drop one there temporarily, and then I'll build one in a more forever position later on. So as far as the research station goes, if I put a research station here, I can put a door there and it could be encapsulated, so that's fine. I like this spot. It also means that these plants here are going to be dug up and discarded, so they're not going to be incorporated into the nature reserve, but I didn't really intend for them to be, because the Micabud is not. Micabuds are, you can think of them as like chrysalises for butterflies, much more than they are plants. And then the Snactus is just like a one-off. It's not a plant, it just gets consumed. So those are the plans. Then the other plan for the, I think for the cots for barracks, I'm just gonna like make the barest makeshift one here, rather than to engineer it. And then, of course, we could always move it sometime in the future. So other priorities. For toggling, I'm going to have this be very high so that we can collect closed doors and flick switches quickly. And that's a pretty good start. So the research portal is a functional research decryptor with one transmission remaining. Basically, it will give you some unlocked research, which would be nice to have. And then putting a research room next to a water source is really convenient because a lot of research requires dirt and water. So having water adjacent to it is definitely convenient. And early on, there's not a lot of like needs that your dupes will have. So having very crude and rough accommodations is totally fine. Now, at some point, I'm going to need to adjust Macho's schedule to a Night Owl schedule, but I wasn't really going to do that right now because at the start of a brand new game, it's more important to like get a lot of stuff done during the daylight hours, and then, of course, we'll transition over. So here, as you can see, this is already technically a barracks. And then we'll be working on a latrine soon. Is that a Stegosaurus? It's a lumb. L-U-M-B. So while we're waiting on some of the projects to be completed that I've queued up, if you're wondering about a lumb is a non-hostile creature that subsists on overgrow vines. When they stomp heavily near plants, the commotion causes harvestable items to fall on the ground. So overgrow vines here. The node puts out vines, and the vines themselves grow fruit, and they can cling to surfaces. So is there examples of this? Sometimes you'll see vines crawling on the ceilings or the floors, so on and so forth. There we go. First achievement, bed and bath. We have one toilet and a bed for every duplicate. So Macho, shield, sushi. Perfect. All right, we're getting pretty close to what we're hoping to accomplish here. And then the eventual outhouse will go around here with a water source nearby for filtration. It's a Lummosaurus. Yeah, you can think of it that way. So, again, to go into the lums, they drop tough meat. They have a long life cycle. They're comfortable within reasonable temperature tolerances, like roughly slightly warm room temperature-ish to hot. Level range is a lot wider. They eat overgrow figs and turn it into peat. Or bristleberries, but not that bristleberries are a thing in this biome, and turn that into peat. Peat, of course, is kind of like coal. So you can think of these guys as, you know, as far as equivalent critters, they're kind of like hatches. Where hatches will eat stuff and turn them into coal, lums will eat figs and turn them into peat. Same sort of rough concept. Alright, let's unlock that portal. Shield is doing the portal stuff. Here we go. Ta-da! Portal unlocked. Eureka! We have decrypted the research portal's final transmission. New buildings have become available. Blast Shot Maker and Meteor Blaster. Why, you ask? Because this is Armageddon. The Demolior Imminent threat. Time until impact, about 200 cycles. Calculating impact zone. Right above us. Oh yeah. So, one of the unique situations you have in the Prehistoric Planet Pack is that you have this asteroid here coming to destroy a sizable swath of your own asteroid, and you have 200 days to be able to supply meteor blasters with intracosmic blast shot to destroy it before it destroys you. So, let's back up a little bit and figure out what that means. The meteor blaster will fire intracosmic blast shot to destroy the Demolior, and the blast shot needs to be made by the blast shot maker. Here we go, blast shot maker. So the blast shot maker it generates a lot of heat. It requires a lot of materials. So if you take a look at the intracosmic blast shots here, it is a refined metal plus fertilizer or peat plus biodiesel or petroleum equals 1 missile. And it's not 1 missile that needs to be fired at this. It's like 100 missiles or something. It's a lot of missiles. So we have a finite amount of time to be able to supply the meteor blaster to be able to actually destroy the impending doom. And up here you have a doom clock. So the meteor has a hit point pool of 1,000. And we have 199.4 cycles to destroy it, or it destroys us. Peat is a pretty common resource to be found everywhere. If we go to the mineral overlay, or the consumable ore overlay, it's the brown stuff here. So peat is in high supply, so that's not an issue. As far as metals go, nickel metal that is refined can also be incorporated into the blast shot. So the last thing we need to do is to figure out whether it's petroleum, meaning oil, or biodiesel. Biodiesel would be sourced through a new crop introduced in this DLC called, what is it called again? Seacomb. So in order to make biodiesel, we can get seacomb leaf, mix it with water in a plant pulverizer to make phyto oil plus bleach stone, which there is plenty of bleach stone in these biomes, equals biodiesel. So that's the rough production chain that we have to figure out. Alright, the plan here is, as I said, to use this area right here as a research room because it's lit, which is going to be a bit of a benefit to us. And then on the other side, I'm going to put some basic power stuff so that our researcher can then run on a treadmill, at least for now. So power, manual generator, battery, and then to keep things simple, wire. And then down here, we have our to-be-done latrine room. And then the latrine room is also going to need a source of water, which is going to come from over here in order to feed the wash basins. So put a pitcher pump right there. And then we'll also have a pitcher pump somewhere over here for the water source here for science. Did that cinematic proper reveal up to space? No. So I don't actually see what's between me and space, but I do see space, which is nice. So there's a few missiles here in the locker room once we get up there. And then the rest of this facility is kind of like standard whatever with some data entry points, which I could read now, but I'm going to read once I get to that point. So we have the barracks. This isn't exactly where I want the permanent barracks to be, but at least we have the barracks. Obviously, things are going to be really germy until we have a proper latrine up. But food poisoning germs are, like, kind of not a big issue, so I'm not too worried about those full stop. And there we go. That's day number 1. So I built these cots just to be able to satisfy our sleep needs for tonight, but I do intend for them to move. I don't intend for them to be there much longer. So from a larger standpoint, if the toilets are down here, that's fine. And then water supply here is fine. I would like to go further down, obviously do some exploration at some point. But for now, trying to get some research under our belt would be great. Also, additionally, would be wise for us to get some oxygen diffusion, which means we need to mine up some more nickel in order to unlock that as a build option. So mining up some nickel, so we have the option to do it. Works for me. Alright, here's our research. So in terms of the research, farming would be nice pretty early on so that we can get a mess hall, and then we could also start farming so that we don't have to worry about food. Because there is not... so instead of coal burner, so in traditional oxygen not included, you'd have a coal burner pretty early on for power. The peat burner here produces carbon dioxide and polluted water. The issue with polluted water is if I don't want to deal with polluted water early on for filtration and recycling, it's a bit of a pain, I would say. So I might stay on hamster wheels for a bit until I'm really ready to transition into the peat burning. But one of the things I wanted to do is to get a supercomputer really early on, because the supercomputer will allow me to have a laboratory room. So I'm going to research water cooler and supercomputer, and the water cooler will also allow me to have a mess hall once I research mess tables. But the goal right now is to get a proper latrine before really anything else. As far as germs go, the reason why I'm not too worried about germs all that much is, like, food poisoning germs is kind of like inconsequential. A lot of the diseases in this game are relatively inconsequential and really you don't need to worry about them. So you can try to have like a germ-free, perfect filtration, chlorinated, etc., etc. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, getting a little food poisoning isn't going to kill your dupes. And because we're on a time crunch, because of the Demolior coming to, like, kill us, I'm not going to try to make perfect solutions. Perfect solutions are a perfect waste of time as far as I'm concerned. So what I'm mostly concerned about is to get the blast shot armed and ready to blow up the giant meteor that's coming to murder me. Like, a few food poisoning germs contracted is just not... it doesn't matter to me. If it happens, it happens. With that said, I will want to eventually incorporate proper plumbing so that we don't have to manually muck out toilets and feed wash basins, because automated plumbing is more efficient than manual plumbing. Or for bathrooms, I'd rather have a washroom. So that's going to be like a goal at some point soon. But it is important to remember that I am not aiming for perfect solutions. They're not a concern of mine because of the constraints of this run. Alright, so this will be the washroom eventually. And there seems to be another source of water on the other side, up a whole bunch of it. And then a new biome. Or actually, that's not a new biome. This is probably a boulder, because I have boulder traits on. Alright, that should be enough for, like, showers and toilets in the long run. Try not to necessarily over-engineer it. Alright, the other thing is, the construction test over here for the pump, kind of important, so we can at least limit some of the food poisoning stuff that we interact with. So there we go. Pitcher pump obtained. So now we have a source of water, and there is plenty of water available for use. So that's not much of an issue. Alright, research for advanced research just got done. So I'm going to pivot and get the mess table. And that will also give us farming, which is going to be useful so that we have calories available. Basically, don't starve. If I want a proper research room, let's go ahead and try to make this look nice. The looking nice, if you're wondering, isn't necessarily strictly... well, it isn't necessary, but it does help with decor, which then helps keep them happy, which then helps keep them productive. So although it seems like maybe one could argue a bit of a waste of time, having them have high morale is definitely a benefit long term, because low morale would really slow us down. Okay, we have 2 outhouses. And now with the sinks, we'll be able to limit some of the germs. Now there are germs already, you know, we're already a bit germy, but again, like I said, don't care. It's not really a problem. All right, as far as researching goes, shield. So leaning into their traits a little bit more, shield here is our researcher, which means I would like to deprioritize everyone else for research a lot. And then Macho is our constructor and digger. So doing the same sort of deprioritization there. And then farming for sushi. So now the dupes that like to their tasks will work on their tasks, in other words. So the current priority now that we have a barracks and a latrine is build a lab, which is pretty simple. I'm just going to be building this thing. And then after we get the lab, being able to tap this water would be nice as well. So, you know, removing some of these crops to get to that water source. Alright, printables. Snack fruit, sure. That works for me. Gas engine, thank you for the resub. Cheers. Alright, basic farming is done. And then I might as well start to get an oxygen diffuser. I will put the oxygen diffuser here for now, which is a little annoying because my wires terminate up there. And then we're going to actually change some of the layout around here so that we embed the cables in just for a little bit of decor. I'm not overly concerned about it, but it will be helpful in the long run. We have some basic projects going on. It might not be a bad idea to put the bedrooms... So, one of the issues of putting the bedrooms too close to the bathrooms is if the bathrooms aren't properly maintained, you could potentially end up with a situation where the bathrooms outgas toxic, you know, oxygen, which wouldn't be ideal. You know, I don't want my duplicates to have to breathe in oxygen or anything like that. So, keeping the bedrooms high might be better. Also, carbon dioxide tends to... it's heavier than oxygen, so it tends to pool in the bottom. So one of the things I plan on doing down here is to have a water filter or air filtration system to get rid of all the CO2. Meaning that bedrooms be maybe right underneath the research room would be a good idea, something like that. That would work around this area. If that's the case, I could also incorporate the nature reserve, incorporating the sweet stalks. And putting the like a nature reserve between the bedrooms and everything else, so they have to pass through them. And maybe having to pass through them for dining as well, so they like definitely pass through the nature reserve multiple times a day. I think that would be handy. So trying to do that would be great. And I could incorporate 4 of these plants and worm it away. Yeah, I sort of have a rough plan in my head. But first comes the lab. So the lab's ceiling's getting done. And then once we have the lab, I might get some basic storage so that I can sweep up some of the stuff that got spilled out in the construction, tidying it all up. But this here is technically a laboratory, because it has a light source and 2 science buildings. Light source being the portal itself, and then the 2 science buildings being the 2 stations. Alright, so now that we have the mess table done, let's consider next. Water filtration would be a good idea to get proper sanitation. But yeah, maybe that's our best bet, to try to get like running water so we have like plumbing and the like. We reach unreachable build. All right, let's dig that out. There we go. Shall deliver. And it's weird to be investing time into like building the rest of these walls, knowing that we're working on plumbing to make it obsolete. But, you know, that's fine. So if we did want to incorporate these plants into the reserve, it could look something like this, where we have the plants in reserve, where the plants remain undisturbed, and then this comes down and over like this, where then the reserve goes here, down like that, so that anyone passing through doors to get to the bedroom here passes through the reserve. So as far as the reserve goes, if I run it like... Let's move this now. If I run it like this, where this comes up... And this is like a lot of work, but, you know, I'm fine with that. If this comes up like this... This could be our reserve. That's not too many cells. And that gives me bedrooms and dining rooms where we pass through it forcibly, where then 4 wild plants are incorporated into it. It's a lot of work, but I kind of like it. So let's go ahead and put a pneumatic door here to be able to get to this floor of the reserve so we can mine all the way across. And then eventually build it out. And then the permanent location for a barracks... Actually, I'm going to lower this down 1. Will be here. I'll probably also want to incorporate, like, mesh tiles or airflow tiles at some point, but I'm not going to worry about that right now, because they can always be replaced in the future. So, I think a barracks is going to be enough for our dupes. I'm not going to go to luxe, because plastic is actually relatively difficult to do for this, scenario type. So for now, we'll keep it a very small barracks. And yeah, I do see the oxalite there that is being decayed away. I guess what it could do is make sure that pool of water stays still by high priority working towards supporting the floor. I'm surprised it's still sublimating because it's high pressurized here. But as soon as we mine through it, it will lose its pressure. All right, so the research we just got is plumbing. Good. And we'll do the same sort of setup here for a Great Hall. So it looks messy as hell, but like, as long as it makes sense up here, it works. The Great Hall is going to look something like that. That's a much lower priority than everything else. So the current priority right now is to build a nature reserve, mess hall, and barracks. Like the real barracks. Because this was just so that they didn't have to sleep on the ground. I should be able to get from under the oxalate from the top. Yeah, I could build a ladder like here and get to it that way too. Because we can go around and down. We'll have to get our feet wet, but like that's fine. As long as we avoid the pool collapse. So here is a ice biome and a salt biome and more ice with bleachstone and brine ice, which is different. It's the prehistoric style, and this is like a brine ice as well, with some dartles. Man, why are you there? That's a dumb spot to be. All right, there we go. It's not sublimating. It is secured. Actually, we secured it. We didn't even secure it from the top, but that's fine. Speaking of which, I'm going to pitcher pump there. Yeah, I know you're a little soggy feet and you're hungry. I'm sorry. We'll work on that. Oh, and we're starting to earn skill points. So let's do advanced research. Give you the associated hat. That was quicker than I thought it would be. Matcha did the same. Gonna give him digging. All right. And there we go. We've got a pitcher pump with plenty of water available to feed research. Research just got done into sanitation. You can't really have a bathroom without like a water sieve. And then, so we'll get water sieves next. The other thing is some of the snack fruit, all the cooking ingredients, and all the edibles are going to go into the ration box, because if I don't, they're going to get like locked out due to building. Alright, looking good, and our kcals should be going up as a result. Sweet corn, snack fruit, nutrient bars, so on and so forth. Alright. I did destroy our ox diffuser. We have a lot of oxalate, so I'm actually not going to worry about that for a bit, because I'd rather have the oxalate just outgas and save the power for research. And looks like it's a pretty good pace. We're starting to get mesh tiles and other useful tiles as well. Awesome. Thank you for tuning in to Oxygen Not Included Dino Armageddon, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, fellow dupes.